Okay, number 3. So it says square root of 3, square root of 2, and y. Something like this. Somebody want to help me set it up? Besides me? Yep, Will.
Since you have to make those squared, would you replace the square root with just 3?
Well, for now, let's just set it up normally.
So square root of 3 plus square root of 2 equals y.
You forgot something. Yeah, all these are squared.
But since those two are basically...
What is the square root of 3 squared?
3.
3. Yeah, these are kind of opposites. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. Oh, yeah. You're right. Number 1 should have been 5 centimeters. Should we put centimeters or centimeters squared on these? Centimeters, yeah. Okay, and then this would just be a normal 2. So 3 plus 2 is 5. So if y squared equals 5, what does y equal?
Square root of 5.
Square root of 5. Which does not come out nice like number 1. So we're not going to turn it into a decimal. The decimal would be like 2.2437. It would like go forever. We're not going to do that. We're just going to leave it like this. Most of your calculators can simplify square roots. Carson, yours cannot. If you have a TI, whatever that is, those can't. No, that one can't. That one can. This, yeah, these TIs can. These are okay. That one cannot.
Well, fooey little sticks.
Okay, there is a way to do it by hand, or you can just borrow your neighbor's calculator. Again, I think, are all my calculators passed out? Yeah, this one's a good one. This one's a good one. This one's a good one. Anybody want a good one?
I'll take it.
Okay, otherwise you're just gonna have to share. Okay, number 5, 7z, 7 squared root of 2. Okay, every calculator in here could have done number 1. If you don't have a good calculator on number 3, it would spit out a decimal, but we don't really want the decimal, we just want the square. So we just left it as square root of 5. Is this 7 square root of 2? Yeah, okay. Gracie? Okay. Okay. So you could use your calculator on this also. It's actually not that bad. It's basically it's 7 squared times square root of 2 squared. This right here. 7 squared is 49. 7 times 7. Square root of 2 squared is 2. So this is 49 times 2 basically. You could just plug that in your calculator with parentheses. But anyway, that's 98. 49 times 2 is 98. So we got 7 squared plus z squared. I should have just changed that to 49. So I'm going to subtract 49, which is also 49. So what squared equals 49? 7. Square root of 49 is 7. So every calculator can do that basic problem. It's just when the square roots don't come out nice that some calculators cannot. I will show you how to do it by hand, although it's just much easier to do it with the calculator. What are we on, 7? How far are we going? 22? Alright, 7. Same thing, they just didn't draw a picture. So it's 3 squared plus 10 squared equals x squared. Three squared is 9. 10 squared is 100. So 109 equals x squared. So square root of 109. So does this simplify?
No.
The way you check is like break it down with the tree. Like this is how you do it by hand. But 109 is a prime number. So nothing goes into it besides 1 times 109. So it doesn't really simplify. So we're just going to leave it alone. Like that. If you plug it into a calculator, you could turn it into a decimal. It'd be like 10.2 or something. Number 9. Jaden, how would I set up number 9?
32 squared plus x squared equals 40 squared.
Correct. 32 squared, that's kind of a big one.
1024.
Did that in your head?
Absolutely not.
You're supposed to lie and take credit.
Oh, yeah.
Have you learned nothing? Yes. Have I taught you nothing? Uh, 576. I think this one did have a square root. Square root is 24.
What about?
The leg on the that was 32. How do you change it back to a number?
Well, you could use your calculator, but it would be 2 squared is 4, and the square root of 7 squared is 7. So it would be 4 times 7 is 28. Or you plug it in your calculator like that.
So,
Number 11. The hypotenuse of a right triangle with legs 5 and x. Okay, this will freak everybody out. We're supposed to find the hypotenuse of a triangle with legs 5 and x. I'll call the hypotenuse C, I guess. So how do I set this one up? 5 squared plus x squared equals c squared. Now we can't solve this down to one number because we don't know what x is. So we're just going to simplify it as much as possible so it says c equals. So, well, 5 squared, I know what that is. But how do I solve this for c? How do I get it to just say c equals? How do you get rid of the square? Square root it. So when you square root the right side, that just cancels out. But then you square root the left side to keep it equal. So that's basically the answer. C equals square root of 25 plus x squared. You cannot simplify it any more than that. You cannot square root both of these individually because of the plus, basically. If they were multiplied in there, you could simplify that. But the plus makes it, I don't know. Okay, 13. So remember that problem because number 12 is kind of like it. Similar kind of answer. Okay, number 13. Classify the triangle with the following side lengths as right, acute, or obtuse. Okay, here's the thing. If they gave us like a triangle with sides 3, 4, and 5, if you do 3 squared plus 4 squared, it adds up to 5 squared. That means it has to be a right triangle. Pythagorean theorem only works in right triangles. Okay, but if this 5, if I turned it into a 6, the hypotenuse would get bigger, right? And then this angle would be bigger than 90, because it would have to open up wider, and it would be obtuse. So this is a right triangle, 3, 4, 5 is a right triangle. But if it was like 3, 4, 6, because 6 squared is bigger, if the c squared is bigger, it's an obtuse triangle. Okay, but if the c squared was smaller, like if it was like less than 5, so maybe 4.5 or something, then it'd have to be acute triangle. So if Pythagorean theorem works, has to be a right triangle. If the two small sides squared add up to the big side squared, that only happens in right triangles. But if the c squared is bigger than the other two, it's an obtuse triangle. If c squared is smaller than the other two, that means it has to be an acute triangle. The c should be the largest side, because if it's going to be the hypotenuse, it would have to be the largest side. So we need to put the big number over here. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
This is not number 13. This is the explanation of how to do 13 through 16 or whatever it is. So 13 actually says 6, 8, and 9. So if one of those sides was the hypotenuse, it would have to be the 9. So what I'm going to do is compare 6 squared plus 8 squared to 9 squared. That would be, whoops,
36, 64.
it's 100. Okay, that means c squared is smaller than a squared plus b squared. So that would mean it's an acute triangle.
So it's in order?
Wait,
No, it's not necessarily in order. You always want to put the big one over here, because if the only side that could be the hypotenuse is the biggest number. So just make sure you put the big one over here by itself. It's like the big one is competing with the two smaller ones, right? And seeing who wins. If it's a tie, it's a right triangle. If the big one wins, it's an obtuse triangle. Obtuse means a big angle, right? The big one wins, it's a big angle. If the big one loses, it's smaller, and then it's an acute angle. So number 13 is an acute triangle.
Not yet.
15. Same thing. 20, 29, and 21. So which one should go where? 29 is going right. So 20 squared plus 21 squared is competing with 29 squared.
29 is 840.
Okay. You said this is 841, Tristan. And I believe that is also 841. So basically what happened was a squared plus b squared equaled c squared. So what kind of triangle is it?
Right.
Right triangle.
Right.
Getting close, getting close. Find the length of the diagonal of a square with side lengths of 10 inches. Okay, on this one, I want you guys to draw a picture and try and set it up. Let me read it again. This is number 17. It says, find the length of a diagonal of a square with side lengths of 10s. The sides of the square are 10. So, draw a picture. Find the length of the diagonal of a square if the sides of the square are 10. Draw a picture, label picture, then write an equation. Square, diagonal of the square, sides of the square are 10. I don't want the answer.
Or all sides of the square?
Well, like, figure out how.
If it's a square, they're all equal.
Yeah, I don't want that either. I want everybody to try to figure out their own.
So an equation 2 figure?
Yeah, the picture, the equation, and go ahead and solve it if you can. Label the picture.
Wait, do we actually have to draw the picture further?
Yeah, go ahead and draw the picture. All right. So square with sides of 10 and the diagonal. So it looks like this. So notice you get a little right triangle, right? Because it's a square. And we're looking for the length of the diagonal. So how do I set that up? 10 squared plus 10 squared equals 2 squared. So that's basically 100, right? 100 plus 100, 200. Square root of 200, all right, is not 100.
It's a decimal.
Okay,
10.
so this is where you want your special calculator. If you don't have a special
10 squared.
Right.
calculator, here's how you do it. You guys remember the factor tree? Where you break it down to primes. 100 is 10 times 10. So, actually, since that's a double, I'm going to stop right there. If you have a double, since 100 has a square root of 10, the doubles come out, and then the leftovers stay behind. So the double 10 comes out as a 10, and the 2 stays behind in the square root. And that's how you do it by hand.
I don't know.
You're not a fan? It helps if you're really good at times tables.
So you want us to not put the 200 squared, but the...
Yeah. Square roots, generally, all math books will want you to simplify as much as you can. They usually don't want the decimal. Sometimes they want a decimal. But they do want you to simplify as much as possible. So instead of square root of 200, like number 3, number 2, we could not simplify those square roots. Okay, number 3 was square root of 5. Couldn't do anything with that. But this one, we can do a little bit. All right, I'm on 19. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, this one will probably confuse you. Maybe you guys will figure it out. It's a word problem. How far from the front of the tent to the nearest inch should an 8-foot rope be staked to ensure that the 4-foot tall tent pole is vertical? You guys set up a tent before?
Yeah.
Usually there's like stakes and ropes involved. That's kind of what you're talking about. They had a little picture of a tent there to help you visualize. So the 4-foot tent pole, guess where that's going? That's like we want the tent pole to be straight up. So that's 4. And then the rope is tied to the tent pole, and then it gets staked to the ground out here to hold the pole up. And it said the rope was how long now? Did it say 8?
Yeah.
8 feet. And then, so the question was, how far should the rope be from the pole? Like the ground is.
4 squared plus x.
Right. 4 squared plus x squared equals 8 squared.
8 squared minus 4.
Yeah, 8 squared minus 4 squared. So now usually when you're setting up a tent, you don't measure it. You just pull the rope until it's tight. But
Square root of 48.
square root of 48. 48 does simplify square, that does, because that's like 2 times 24, and 2 times 12, and 2 times 6, and 2 times 3. So there's 2 double 2's that come out. So 2 times 2 is 4, comes out, and then there's a 3 left behind. Most of your calculators should be able to do that. That one doesn't? Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think that one does. That one, I don't believe it does, no.
Or you could just do a 4 and a 12, and then do the 4 and 3 from the 12.
Yeah, we could have done 4 and 12 and 4 and 3. And
I know, that's just what I do.
or we could have done 16 and 3, and 16 turns into 4 and 4. Alright, last one. What time do we get out?
55.
Okay, 19, how far? Nope. There, I did that one. 21. Okay, it says find EM if TA is 14. If TA is 14, how long is IA? You guys looking at that picture on 21? If you're right, if TA is 14, then how long is IA? 7. Because TA is like that, so if that's 14, this is 7. And it gives 15 for the outside. Okay, and since it's a kite, we know that those are like 90-degree angles, so there's our triangle. And we're not really looking for this thing, we're actually looking for the whole, this thing. So in other words, once we figure out what x is, we have to do x plus 6, because we're looking for the whole length along that kite, the whole diagonal of the kite. So whatever x is plus 6 will be our answer. Okay, how do I find x? X squared plus 7 squared equals 15 squared. I just remembered on the last problem they actually asked for inches, but too late. What does that come out to? 176? I don't think that has a perfect square root, but I do think that simplifies. What does that simplify to? 4 squared of 11. Okay, so remember that was just this part of the diagonal. So it's 4 squared of 11 plus 6 would be the whole thing. Which does not simplify unless you turn it into a decimal, but we're not going to turn it into a decimal. So we'll just leave it like that. 4 squared of 11 plus 6. Okay, on 22, you're supposed to find the area of the triangle. And basically you have to use Pythagorean theorem to find the height of the triangle. And remember, triangles are base times height divided by 2. Yeah.